What makes a particular country good at penalties? Is it the mindset, training, or something else? In this video, we will take an in-depth look into the wonderful world of penalty kicks. We will talk about the psychology behind the spot kick, look into some nations' penalty performances at the World Cup, and discuss famous penalties that have shaped football history. Southampton legend Matt Le Tissier is regarded as one of the greatest ever penalty takers. He finished his career with an astonishing 98% success rate from the spot, scoring 48 penalties. He said, "I believed that when I stepped up to take them, I was going to score." Perhaps the fact that Le Tissier viewed the penalty as such a simple task is why he was so successful from the spot. We know that the mental pressure of an important spot kick can weigh heavily on any footballer. One recent example is England captain Harry Kane. Harry Kane and England crashed out of this World Cup with a defeat to France in the quarter-finals. The loss was especially hard to take as with 5 minutes left on the clock, Harry Kane missed a vital penalty, having already scored a spot kick earlier on in the game. Before the missed strike, Kane had taken 68 penalties in his career and scored 58 of them, an incredible record. We are used to seeing him dispatching penalties with incredible pace and power, but against France he could only score 1 out of 2. Something felt different. Before the first penalty, which Kane scored, he had to place the ball on the penalty spot twice. He seemed nervous and repeated his routine, not something we would normally see from any penalty taker. He tucked away that spot kick but seemed uneasy, possibly more so because he was up against his club teammate Hugo Lloris, with whom he probably practices penalties every day, a tricky psychological battle. Not long afterwards, France restored their lead and went 2-1 up, but then Mason Mount won a penalty for England. In the game's dying moments, they had a fantastic chance to make it 2-2. This time, Kane stepped up and ballooned the ball into the stands. Minutes later, the final whistle went. France had won 2-1 and Harry Kane had missed perhaps the most important penalty of his entire career. Kane also missed a spot kick in the Euro 2020 semi-final victory over Denmark. Thankfully, he was able to convert the rebound on that occasion. But it's interesting that a man who scores penalties for fun has missed 2 of the most important he has ever taken. This is because the most important penalties prove to be the most difficult to convert. The ball may still be 12 yards out and there are not 2 goalkeepers, but the stakes are much higher. Plenty of ex-penalty takers like David Beckham have since spoken out about just how physically affected they were under the pressure of taking penalties. They would feel anxious and even short of breath at times. Beckham had a great penalty record too, albeit with a smaller sample size than Kane, scoring 9 penalties in career and missing just twice. One of those, coincidentally, was a vital spot kick in Euro 2004, also against France. The result that day? 2-1 to the French. Sticking with England, they have a poor record as a team in penalty shootouts. Since 1990 they have competed in 10 shootouts and only won 3 of them. Throughout that period in history, they have always been littered with quality players used to scoring penalties week in and week out for their clubs. It just doesn't seem as simple at a major tournament. Lionel Messi scored 6 out of the 7 penalties he took in Qatar. His goals came against Saudi Arabia in the group, Croatia in the semi-final, and Holland and France in the quarter-finals and final, where he scored 2 penalties in each because of shootouts. Messi's only miss came in a 2-0 win against Poland. Historically, penalties have been Messi's Achilles heel. The best player of all time is certainly not the best penalty taker. His conversion rate, around 77%. Like Harry Kane, some of his missed penalties have been the most significant. Despite a victory over Poland, at the time Messi missed the penalty, it was 0-0 and Argentina needed a win. He also missed in a 2018 group stage game to Iceland, a 1-1 draw. In the 2016 Copa America final against Chile, Messi missed, and Chile won 4-2. He has also missed some high-profile penalties in the European Cup, famously crashing the ball against the crossbar when Chelsea beat Barcelona in the 2012 Champions League semi-final. Messi has said himself that he wished he could improve his penalty record, and that it wasn't up to standard, but also that it was almost impossible to practice, as it simply isn't the same in training as it is in the game. This tells us all we need to know about the pressure of a spot kick. Technically nothing changes, a penalty is the same shot, but the pressure of the occasion changes everything. The fear of failure, There may be other reasons why players miss penalties. The goalkeepers union, of course, will want to say in this debate, as the penalty taker isn't the only person involved. Former Chelsea and Fulham goalkeeper Mark Schwarzer said, "Goalkeepers are simply getting better. There's a lot more research put into it, a lot of time and a lot of effort spent on the fine margins, the 1%. Like all athletes, keepers have grown in shape, size and agility over the years, and some have developed their skills in the dark arts too. If there wasn't enough pressure on the taker beforehand, certain keepers are brilliant at reminding them just how big their responsibility is." The Argentinian goalkeeper Dibu Martinez is known for his trash talking before spot kicks. He has visibly affected the thought process of plenty of penalty takers by throwing seeds of doubt into their minds as they step forward to take the kick. Martinez has been a penalty hero 3 times for Argentina. His saves helped them defeat Colombia in a shootout on their way to a famous Copa America victory last year, and as recently as this World Cup, in the quarterfinals and the final, he was the hero again, the star of the show, over the Netherlands and France. Some fans may find this sort of gamesmanship distasteful, but it has certainly proved effective. Whether it's talking to the player or invading their personal space to taunt them before the kick, he is so effective in psychological warfare. A London School of Economics professor studied over 1,300 penalties from 129 shootouts. The team that went first in the shootout won 60.5% of the time. The same study also showed that a player is about 11% more likely to score a penalty in normal time than in a shootout. If a player steps up to take a penalty, knowing that it can be the match winner and that if he misses the kick he cannot lose the tie for his team, the success rate is a whopping 92%. However, in the opposite situation where a player knows that if he misses the penalty his team will lose the shootout, the chances of him scoring plummet to 60%. It's obvious that the higher the stakes, the more the pressure, and the more the pressure, the more you're likely to miss, even if statistically you're a great penalty taker. So how have international teams fared in World Cup shootouts over the years? England perhaps haven't been very successful, but have fortunes been the opposite for other nations? Let's take a look. Of the 8 quarterfinalists in Qatar, Croatia have the best World Cup penalty record, 100%, with 4 shootout wins out of 4, all of which have come in the last 2 tournaments in victories over Denmark, Russia, Japan and Brazil. Perhaps their unprecedented experience of facing high drama shootouts over the previous 4 years has made it a more regular and therefore less pressurizing task. Historically, Argentina have now won 6 out of 7 World Cup shootouts. Holland have only been successful in 1 out of 4. You wonder if these statistics play on the minds of players. They may not in any way be connected to a team that missed a few penalties 20 years ago, but in a funny way, it seems that trends carry on through the generations, for better or worse. Historically, Germany are the kings of the World Cup shootout. They have won 4 out of 4, scoring an incredible 17 penalties from 18 attempts. These were 4 different teams in 4 different tournaments, all of which came in high-pressure quarter-final and semi-final matches. So why is it that the Germans are such penalty specialists? Is it a mentality? The Germans are always talked about in the media as being efficient and ruthless. Perhaps this has helped create the stereotype, or maybe the Germans made it happen. What about practicing penalties? Surely the Germans don't do that more than any other team. In Qatar, Luis Enrique's Spain went out on penalties to Morocco, and in their minds they could not have been any more prepared. Enrique revealed that his players took 1,000 penalties in training, and in the last minute of extra time against Morocco, he brought on Pablo Sarabia to increase their chances of shootout success. A 120th minute substitution is usually an indicator that the replacement is a penalty specialist, and Sarabia is exactly that. He boasted a stunning 100% conversion rate, scoring 16 out of 16 penalties taken in his career. Until then. What happened against Morocco? Sarabia missed. We saw a stunning World Cup final finish with a penalty shootout win for Argentina. They were 4-2 winners, and Dibu Martinez made the difference yet again. The World Cup final itself has now gone to a shootout 3 times. In the previous 2 occasions, the Italians were involved, both times, in 1994 against Brazil and in 2006 against France. In '94, the man of the moment was Roberto Baggio, nicknamed the Divine Ponytail. Despite his otherworldly technical ability, Baggio fell victim to the percentages of taking a penalty that could potentially lose a match, let alone a World Cup final. He sent his shot over the bar and made Brazil champions of the 1994 World Cup. In 2006, an Italian who wasn't quite as talented as set-piece taker Baggio stepped up with the opportunity to convert a winning penalty kick. He knew he could win the World Cup for his team with this kick, and he also knew that if he missed, they wouldn't necessarily lose the shootout. This is the famous 90+% kick that any player would relish. That day, it was Fabio Grosso, and he made no mistake. Penalties are a cruel and unforgiving mistress. Analysing them shows clear trends, like where goalkeepers like to dive and where strikers like to try and shoot. But history tells us that any one penalty in isolation can end up anywhere, and in that split second, all the stats can be thrown out the window. That is why penalty shootouts are often referred to as a lottery. There are so many intangibles that make this crazy way to decide a football game completely unpredictable, with many exceptions to the rule. And this is precisely what adds to the thrill of a shootout. It levels the playing field and has produced some of the biggest upsets in the game. They say that the Germans are born with it, and that the English are inherently the opposite. Maybe they have a point, or perhaps it's just a coincidence. What did you think of the shootout in this year's World Cup final? Can you train for the pressure of taking a penalty, or is it simply impossible to replicate those circumstances? Maybe some players are built for it mentally, and maybe some aren't. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.